In a world where hustle culture collides with wellness warnings and workplace demands keep evolving, how do we stay sharp without burning out? How do we navigate the endless stream of wellness trends while actually getting results? This is the Work and Wellness Podcast, and I'm your host, Angela Davies. Drawing from my own journey of wins, stumbles, and honest revelations, I'll be bringing you raw, unfiltered conversations with experts and inspiring guests who've been there, lived it, and found a better way. Together, we'll cut through the noise and workshop what it really means to be well in today's workplace. No more choosing between success and sanity. No more sacrificing health for achievement. Whether you're struggling with burnout, searching for purpose, or simply ready to work smarter, not harder, you're in the right place. This is real talk about real solutions for real people. Let's get into it. Hello, friends. Welcome to Work and Wellness. I am so excited for this episode today. It is a guest episode, and I'm really excited to welcome our guest to the podcast today, Stu Cooke. With a passion for health, Stu co-founded Australia's first superfood protein company, 180 Nutrition, in 2009. He also hosts the Health Session podcast, which connects him to health and wellness leaders around the world. It has had millions of downloads, so we're in good company today. And he's interviewed guests such as Wim Hof, amongst many others. And it was the combination of these two paths that led Stu to realize the power of beef organs in addressing the nation's nutrient deficiencies and co-found Ancestral Nutrition, most famous for their beef liver, but amongst many other amazing products that they produce. Stu, you are also a friend of mine. I have worked with you for quite some time now. I love the work that you're doing with Ancestral, and I'm keen to explore today how Stu looks after his own well-being whilst growing two large companies. And I really want to understand the tips and takeaways that Stu has applied from his amazing podcast guests and put into practical reality. So it is with great pleasure that I welcome Stu to Work and Wellness. Hey, Stu.
Hello, Ange. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I always love having a good chinwag with you.
We always cover the topics of the world, don't we? I feel like we solve the problems of the world when we chat, Stu.
We do. We sure do. I love it.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to jump in today. You have founded two really large businesses. One is growing exponentially, which is awesome to see, both in the health and wellness space. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey to starting your businesses. And was it a coincidence that they're both in the wellness space, or was that very purposeful and through a journey that you'd experienced?
Well, I think the first business was just an alignment with a friend of mine who was my former business partner back in 2009, I think. And I was a surf lifesaver in Coogee at the time, and he was a good friend of mine, and we were on the same patrol, and we just used to brainstorm about the world and business and health and things like that, because we're in the same we're into similar interests. And I was a graphic designer and had been a graphic designer for many, many years and trained at uni back in the UK and that. He was a health and fitness trainer and just done his certificate 3 or 4 in personal training, and he was working at the UTS in Sydney. And so we used to train together in a gym. We used to surf and swim together. We had a common interest that was weight training and lifting, getting fit, and supplements and everything that went into that life. And we decided that there had to be a better way than working for the man 9 till 5 and then doing the stuff that you loved outside of that. And from a very entrepreneurial mindset, or he was coming from that mindset. He was into loads of books and Tony Robbins and self-help and all that kind of stuff, and introduced me to a range of different ways of thinking that ultimately led us into the position of being able to create, or at least what we thought was a revolutionary new product that was a whole food protein powder in the time that everything was synthetic and nasty and fluoro and fillers and thickeners and chemical sweeteners and everything under the sun. So he had the very good fortune of working with a team of renegade health professionals up on the Gold Coast who were treating people with chronic disease in a very different way, namely lifting weights and cleaning up their diet completely. And then he came to me and told me about all of the wonderful things that he'd heard and all of the strategies that these health professionals were using. And he was tasked with, at that time, trying to find a protein powder that the clients that the renegade health professionals were working with could consume, because everything on the market was full of nasties. And so he came back to me and said, look, I've got this idea. And then we just put our minds together and connected ourselves with the right people in contract manufacturing and organic blending, and came up with what we called a superfood protein, which was essentially high quality protein, nuts and seeds and coconut fiber for digestion and psyllium husk and all of these other organic ingredients that were basically crushed and ground into a powder that became a food. You made this amazing smoothie and it would fill you up for the entire day. And that quickly took off in that space. And from a couple of guys who were essentially two kind of wannabe surf lifesavers with no idea about business, but we just had a vision. It took off so quickly. It got national press, and before we knew it, we had a multi-million-dollar business, and really without a business strategy or any of that kind of thing. But we still had a little bit of a niggle, in as much as he was still personal training at the UTS, and he was working on some really high-flying people, so lots of pro athletes who were still struggling to achieve health, irrespective of what they were taught. So they were taught to consume less and exercise more if you want to lose weight, and just follow the mainstream program, and it wasn't working. And so we decided, well, if mainstream advice isn't working, how can we get the best advice from another source outside of mainstream? So we decided we're going to start a podcast. So back in the day, it was like 2012, I think, when we first started to record. And we just reached out to people around the world who were specialists in X, whatever that X may be, whether it was gut health, metabolism, brain health, weight loss, weight gain, psychology, and just chatted with them for an hour or so and just shared their findings with our audience. And that quickly highlighted this whole world. It was like the Matrix pill. You take one pill or the other and the worlds are so completely different. You think you're living in a new world. And so that started us on a rabbit hole of looking into every single facet of health. And we applied all of these new changes that we'd found to ourselves and experimented in the day with DNA tests, microbiome tests, blood tests, stool tests, everything to try and move the needle on health in some way, shape or form, while at the same time continuing to record and speak to the leaders in the field who were writing New York Times best-selling books or award-winning health documentaries, science writers, all of this kind of stuff, and just growing from that point forward. And that really just opened our eyes to everything that was possible, realised that the majority of things that we're told to do are nowhere near as effective as a lot of the strategies that then we were pursuing at the time. So when, to use that age-old adage of everything that you're told to do the opposite, it was kind of true at the time. So we were eating way more than we should have ever been eating, getting super lean, having fantastic sleep and energy, when you would think that the opposite would happen. And that spiraled into, then the company got bigger and bigger and bigger, subsequently was sold, and that kind of laid the foundation then for what became Ancestral Nutrition, and which again was just a real passion of mine, it was it's so deeply rooted in the nutritional sense. We're able to access these organs that are offer more nutrition than anything on the planet in a convenient form. And so that's kind of what we're, I won't say playing with at the moment, but we're working really hard just to spread the word, and also the information and education that we're creating through the podcast and everything that we've learned today. So that's kind of where we are.
Yeah, it's awesome and such a great story. I love hearing how businesses spin off a need, because I think that's where the true magic is, where it spins off a need. You were saying you're sort of doing surf lifesaving, and, you know, that's how 180 Nutrition came about, through getting a friend of yours. But had you always been focused on health and well-being, Stu? Is that something that was always in your realm throughout your life, or is it something that sort of more happened once you came over to Australia and got closer to the beach, or do you feel like you grew up with that?
I've always been super, super active, and I love it, and I can't stop. And so without diving too deep into the nutritional side, which I never really had until we started 180 Nutrition, I'd always been super active. So I love riding the mountain bike and ocean swimming and lifting weights and just moving. And I don't know why, but I really have like ants in my pants. So I just have to move each and every day. And so that's always kept me, I guess, in good shape. So I've always been lean, and I've managed to dodge the doctor's office for as long as I can remember. But it wasn't until we really got into 180 Nutrition, our very first guest on the health sessions at that time was a lady called Nora Gagaudis, and she's recognised as the founding kind of forefather of the primal movement. She wrote a book called Primal Body, Primal Mind, and it was that particular book that just opened our eyes to everything. We were questioning processed carbohydrates. We were questioning industrialized seed oils. We were questioning additives and gluten and the role of fiber in your diet. All of these things which we always thought were given, suddenly it was literally like watching a Michael Moore documentary on the underhand tactics of the government, that you just realise, well, wow, this is in plain sight, and I can actually start to see food for what it really is for the very first time. And so from that point forward, we started scrutinising ingredients lists, nutritional panels, the history of companies, things like that, which ultimately led us down the path of foregoing processed food completely, because we just realised that there's no trust there whatsoever, because ultimately it's just built for profit. And if we can avoid as many things with labels as possible from a food perspective, then it's a great place to start. You're just going to be consuming whole foods, and you've really got a head start against everyone.
Yeah. And when you made that change, Stu, so I know I've talked with you about this before, where you were sort of having like a bowl of oats and, you know, eating what would be seen to be healthy, right? You know, things that you thought were really healthy. And then you made this change where you focused a lot more on whole foods in the form that they come from. What change did you notice in your ability to be present and focus at work? So was there a change, not just in the way that you felt, but in the way that you were able to focus on tasks or engage in work when you made that switch to your diet?
Absolutely. So I was, because I've always been active, and I ride to every job that I've ever had. I've ridden. So just mountain bike, whether it be through Centennial Park in Sydney, back into where I used to work in Darlinghurst, to where I work now. So I always cycle everywhere. So I'm continually burning calories. Back in the day, I had to take a bag of food with me to work. So I would start off the day with a huge bowl of porridge and banana, and I'd put some cinnamon on there, and it was delicious. Just the biggest bowl. But when I got to work, I was just ravenous. I was so hungry, I couldn't think about anything other than food. So I'd then have muesli bars and mixed nuts and biscuits and fruit and things like that. But literally a huge bag. I actually had a top drawer at work, which was my snack drawer. And I was constantly replenishing it because I was so hungry. And the moment I transitioned over into a whole food diet, that hunger just slipped away. And I just put it down to the fact that it is so nutrient dense that my body is satisfied. It has what it needs. It's got those raw materials that it needs to function. Hunger slipped away, And now I'll eat breakfast at maybe 6:45, and I won't have lunch till maybe 2:30. And sometimes I'm not even hungry for lunch, because I really go health for leather on the meals that I eat now. But there's zero snacking, no need for snacking. But clarity of mind is just 100% better than it used to be, because I was constantly chasing that next snack. I was hangry for food, and it just disappeared. And ultimately that was just with the inclusion of moving away from all this processed carbohydrate, which is essentially like kindle for a fire, and exchanging that for something that could be likened as a log on the fire. So instead I have protein and fat and fiber, and those things are just so much more satiating and supporting that you haven't got the tremors anymore. It was like being given the key to freedom from a calorie prison. It's like, I don't need this anymore. And it was just so, it was just so, so appealing to be able to escape that world, because I was continually planning my day on, well, I'm going to be hungry. I know I'm going to be hungry in half an hour. Where am I going to get some food if I'm not here? And so I was kind of reorganizing my path to get through the day based upon me being hungry. And now I don't even think about it.
I love that statement. The key to freedom from a calorie prison. I feel like that really sums it up. It's so good, Stu. And I think, that food noise as well is distracting for us from our work too, right? Like, every time you're thinking about food and trying to figure out when you're going to eat, to have a really nutrient-dense, satiating breakfast that sees you have that mental clarity and focus for the day has such a positive impact on not only the way you feel, but also the way that you are at work. So what does a breakfast look like for you, Stu? What is your typical breakfast that helps to see you through to sort of that 2 o'clock that makes you feel really focused and like you're able to problem solve and creatively think through that morning?
So breakfast today was pan-fried ground beef with a couple of eggs, and so basically half a pack, 250 grams of minced meat, stir-fried in a pan. So it takes minutes. It's so quicker than porridge could ever be. A couple of eggs in there, a few veggies thrown in, half an avocado, and then that is essentially breakfast. And then I'll have a piece of fruit afterwards, or 2 pieces of fruit, maybe an apple and an orange, or oranges are actually great, full of fiber, very filling. So yeah, apple, orange, mincemeat, avocado, done. So you've got great protein, you've got lots of fat, you've got carbohydrates and fiber from the fruit and the veggies, and that's it. Walk out the door. I can get that done in 5 minutes.
So good. I mean, I think you're really challenging the view of what breakfast is, right? I think in our minds, so many of it, people sort of think breakfast has to be sweet. Like that meal you're describing to a lot of people would sound like a lunch or a dinner meal, right? But
totally.
Breakfast in the form that we know it was invented by the cereal company. So I think it's good to challenge that assumption, which is awesome.
So. We always say if breakfast looks like breakfast, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
And ultimately, if you can dodge that huge carbohydrate load of processed refined white carbohydrate in favor of, because remember, we've just fasted, you're breaking your fast, so you've just slept overnight and you've had all this cellular repair. So your body needs raw materials, and we are literally what we eat. So if we're going to supply our body with Pop-Tarts and Cheerios, then that's all it's got to play with. So I would much rather go to the quality building blocks of healthy protein choices. And it doesn't have to be, it can be last night's dinner. Cook once, eat twice. So you have last night's dinner and you just heat that up. Like, I have no preconceptions about breakfast. I'll open up the fridge and whatever's in there, I'll make do with. It'll always be eggs of some sort in there, but it might be that, last night's slow cooked beef, or maybe there's some curry in there, or whatever it may be. But it never looks like breakfast.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's a lot of people who might have eggs for breakfast thinking that that's enough protein. What would you say to that if someone came to you and said, I'm having 2 eggs, maybe on a piece of organic sourdough? I love an organic sourdough stew. But what would you say to them if they think that that's sort of enough protein for breakfast?
Not enough. Totally not enough. So, an egg maybe give you 6 or 7 grams of protein, 2 eggs in there. So, 14 grams. Like I think that protein and muscle, muscle is the organ of longevity. It was a coin that I got off the podcast from a longevity specialist who just said, we really want to be working towards preserving lean muscle as we age. And so for me, I look at, I use a little calculation of what I need to be able to preserve my muscle as I age. I'm in my 50s and muscle slips away quickly after middle age. So I'm looking about 2 grams of protein for every kilo of body weight. That's what I'm looking at. And let's say I'm 70 kilos. I'm a little bit over 70 kilos. So 2 grams of that would be about 140 grams of protein. So I round that up to 150 because the numbers are easier. And that gives me 3 50-gram windows of protein. So breakfast, 50 grams of protein. That's what I'm kind of going for. I don't measure or weigh anything, but that's kind of what I'm trying to look for. So a couple of eggs on sourdough toast will give me about 15 grams of protein. So I'm shy about 35 grams. So I need to do more. It's a long way to go. And the easiest way, if people are concerned about, I can't eat that much, we'll just have a smoothie. Like you can get a decent 40 grams of protein in a smoothie. And you can sweeten it to your liking with berries and use whatever milk you want. But that's a really easy and filling and quick way to get protein in there and also load it up with a lot of things that you like if time is of the essence and you're really not one to cook in the morning. Yeah. So I'll also use smoothie as part of my protocol. I like a collagen smoothie. Collagen's great as you get older as well. Hair, skin, nails, gut, things like that. And it's a good source of protein.
Sometimes I won't even have it for breakfast, Stu. I find myself on summer days, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, I have a protein smoothie for dinner on some summer days. When it's too hot, I don't feel like I want to eat too much, but I want to get in my nutrients. I sort of end my day, usually like 4:30, 5 o'clock, and have a protein smoothie then. What are your thoughts on that?
I think great. I think as long as you know what you're putting in it, it's great. Breakfast doesn't have to look like breakfast. Dinner doesn't have to look like dinner. As long as you know what you're putting in there, it's easier on the digestive system. It's all ground down, so it's going to be better for sleep because your gut doesn't have to work overtime trying to break down your heavy meal. And at the moment, I mean, we're in the Northern Rivers and it is so hot and humid. The last thing you feel like doing is eating a hot meal. Yeah. So I'm thumbs up to that. I'll go for that every day.
Awesome. So good. How do you maintain this, Stu, with busy days, right? You're growing a business. You've got a family. You've got, kids. How do you maintain your health and your healthy protocols, your movement? You say you love moving, cooking your breakfast. For someone who looks and thinks, God, I just don't have time. How do you make sure that you incorporate all your wellness habits into your day?
So I have a whole set of non-negotiables and I just make time for it because we've got so much time during the day. I could sit on my smartphone, I'd sit down and look up and half an hour's gone. Like it just disappears. Yeah. There's always time. So I just make sure that for one, I know that what I do in the morning will set up really the stage for my energy throughout the day and then also the quality of sleep that I have during the night. So I'll just make sure that my non-negotiables will get me out of bed at, say, 6:30 in the morning. I can beat the kids to the kitchen. So 5 or 10 minutes, I'm done in there. I will go to the gym early before work. So I'll be at the gym at 7:15. So I get my workout done early. I cycle to the gym. By the time I get to work at 8:30, I've had a great breakfast. I've cycled to the gym. I've had a workout. I've got sunlight in my eyes because I'm out cycling the streets like a lunatic at 7 o'clock in the mornings. And that's a huge part of my day checked off. And then I know that I've got a good 6 or 7 hours of window at work now where it kind of doesn't matter what I do in terms of if I sit there in meetings. Well, that's fine because I've done a lot of exercise and I know that I'm going to be cycling home from that. I know that when I do get home, I'm going to have a really healthy lunch because, again, it's just going to be super quick. I'll prepare it myself. I can do it in 5 minutes. And then I've checked that box. So healthy breakfast check, healthy lunch check. I've done my exercise, and all of these things then are leading up to me moving enough throughout the day. So that will lead into good sleep at the end of the night. So for me, it's just non-negotiables. If I know that I've got an early morning meeting, I'll get up even earlier and make sure that I do all of those things beforehand. I just schedule it in and get it done, because I know how I feel if I don't do those things. If I can't access a decent breakfast, if I can't move my body, if I have crappy sleep, everything just breaks down, and it makes the entire day so much harder. If you're not going into it with 100% energy and focus, and don't have any cravings, don't feel like I'm jet lagged. So it's just a case of like healthy routines that I've just repeated, all the boring stuff, repeat, because those boring habits, they just lead up to fantastic outcomes at the end of the day. I mean, people will look at me and say, God, that's so dull, but feel great, and I'm able to tackle everything that I want to tackle just by keeping on top of these very boring habits.
I love that though, because I think in a world where there is the next diet craze, the next movement craze, you know, the next pill, the next injection, hearing that it's actually just the boring habits repeatedly done cumulatively that make you feel great. Yeah. And I think whilst you might say it sounds boring, I think when you repeat the same things over and over again, it makes it much easier to stick to them because you're not having to think about it. And on top of that, it allows you the time and space to go and do the fun things because you're more productive at work. So you're getting through your workload a lot quicker. Like I know that you're not in there until 5, 6 o'clock at night. You're in there, you're focused, you're getting what you need done because you've had that morning activity. So I guess to summarize, you have your protein-filled breakfast. So that's one of your non-negotiables. Daily movement, another non-negotiable. Sunlight in the eyes. Another non-negotiable. Are there any others that for you are absolutely key in your day to make sure you're set up for success?
I like to get sun on the skin. So sun, I'm a big proponent. I mean, I'm originally from the UK, so sunshine was something that we weren't used to until we got to Australia. We got, the one token heat wave week per
at 25
year
degrees
over there.
Celsius.
So, at 25 degrees, exactly right. We're on the beach.
Yeah.
So I'll chase the sun. So at lunchtime, I'll come back, 2:30, have some dinner, and then I'll just walk the dog on the beach if I can for an hour. If I'm lucky, just full exposure, board shorts, get as much sun as I can, because I really do value the importance of vitamin D, and I value the importance that the sun has on my mindset and my sleep as well. And it's another one of those pieces of I guess it's another tool in the bag that I see as amazingly valuable. Whole foods, movement of the body, sunshine, quality sleep, and that will lead into a happier body, like healthier body, happier person. And then from there, the relationships and family dynamic seems to be a lot easier because I've done my thing. Like everybody's kind of happy and we gel that way. So definitely sunlight is huge. I get it. I try and get 5-10 minutes in the morning into my eyes when I wake up, just to wash away all the kind of sleepy hormones.
Yeah.
Tell my body that it's a new day. Like get up, wake up. It's we're not sleeping anymore. But then I'll try and enforce that at lunchtime, where I just get out and about. And just try and get some sun on my skin. I just think I think we're in a society, without being conspiratorial, that we've been told to slip, slap, slop, avoid the sun at all costs. But mindful sun exposure, nobody wants to burn, that's just silly. But mindful sun exposure, I think, can be really, really beneficial for our health. And I don't remember us being as alarmist 30, 40 years ago with the sun, and we seem to be continually declining towards worse health as the decades roll on. So I'm always questioning the advice that comes out of the mainstream mouths, but I'll get as much sun as I can at lunchtime, and that's just part of the daily toolkit.
Yeah, that's great. Those are some really awesome tips, and I think I guess one other question I have for you is there's a lot of different information out there about variety in your diet versus eating the same thing every day. What are your thoughts? And I guess I'm aiming this question particularly from, if you are someone who has a business or works in the corporate space, you've got limited, not even time, but mental capacity to continually think about all these different new meals and all of that sort of stuff. What are your thoughts on the importance of variety versus eating the same thing every day, not just for ease, but for knowing that you're getting all your nutrients in?
Yeah, I'll have a set collection of foods that I'll always consume. So eggs are on the menu every day, and I do that because they're just a source of wonderful things. So you've got healthy fats and protein and so many nutrients in there that are just wonderful. And so I will mix up the fruit and the veg. Yes, I might have white potatoes one day, sweet potatoes the next. Maybe there's some rice coming in. Maybe there's some quinoa. That's fine. I'm not going to go hell for leather in trying to make every meal different and varied, because it's decision fatigue.
Yeah.
It's the same reason Steve Jobs used to wear that same polo
Black
neck
shirt, yeah.
Exactly, again and again. Similarly, why I tend to eat similar food groups, it's just decision fatigue. I'll just know that, my body needs the building blocks. I know I need protein. I know I need healthy fat. There is variety enough in vegetables out there. I'll probably choose from 10 different veg that we might have in the fridge, 5-6 different types of fruit. We mix the protein up with fish and sardines and haddock and tuna and all that kind of stuff. So there is enough variety in there without having to lose sleep because I'm not eating the rainbow every day.
Yeah.
I think that, again, it's just another message of this diversity that has probably been pushed a little bit too far. Because ultimately, I could eat all the colours of the rainbow and have a beautiful rainbow salad every single day, but I'd probably be missing out on my protein and my fat.
Yeah.
And those are the keys for the building blocks for the body. I don't want to bombard myself with too much fibre, because ultimately I just feel bloated and I'll be sitting on the toilet all day.
Not productive.
Not productive, no.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good take, Stu, because I think sometimes, again, one of the rhetorics is a lot around, diversity, and I think it can be a little bit confusing for people. So just hearing that you've got a formula and you might rotate out 4 to 5 different carb sources, 4 to 5 different protein sources, a bit of fruit, and I think that just helps make the building blocks a lot easier for people, reduces that decision fatigue, like you said, because when you're working in a busy role or when you're running a company, your ability to make multiple decisions diminishes at home because you're doing it so much at work. And so I think that's a really good tip.
It just makes things easy when you're out and about, because if I am ever caught out at work and I have to go to the supermarket could be one of those places where you could spend forever. I'm in there for lunch. What am I going to get? Don't know what, where am I going to gravitate to? I'll go in there and I'll generally buy 3 things. If I have to go into a supermarket for lunch, I'll get a vacuum packed smoked salmon fillet, 1 avocado, 1 banana, done. I'm in and out in seconds, and I have a meal that fills me up until the next meal. No need to snack. Salmon, avocado, banana, done.
That's a great tip, Stu, because I think even people who work in corporate offices, right? Say you've forgotten your lunch for the day or, you're out of food for the week, and there's usually a supermarket nearby where you can go and get your lunch.
Yep.
So vacuum sealed salmon, an avocado, a banana. Do you have a second option of that, just in case people don't eat salmon? Is there something else, like from the protein perspective, that you would choose?
Look, you could. I mean, oftentimes they sell chickens. Like, I'd go in there and maybe grab a chicken, and that will go in the fridge for another time, but I'll have some chicken breast and avocado and banana. As long as there's a source of protein in there somewhere that is filling. Yeah. So I'll do. I love that. Or I'll always gravitate to tinned fish. I love mackerel and sardines, things like that. They're smelly and ungodly, but they're delicious.
I know, that's like an office taboo, Stu, taking that in the office.
I know. Works wonders for meetings. No one wants to be in there with you.
No, that's great. I love that tip actually for, someone going into an office every day, whether it's their own or within a corporate office, that if you don't have your lunch, those three things is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a really good tip. I guess looking back now, Stu, when you started 180 to now, how has your definition of wellness evolved from time back in 2009 when you were first looking to 180 to now?
I think during the 180 days, we were receptive to everything. We were recording podcasts 2 or 3 times a week. We were new to the thought that the food system can offer so many different avenues, and each avenue perhaps can address an issue, whether it be fibre for gut health, protein for muscle building, weight gain, weight loss, all of the above. So we were trying lots and lots of different things. We were reading a ton of books, listening to a gazillion podcasts, recording podcasts ourselves. Now, fast forwarding, I think everything has become more clear in as much as the answers are much more simple now. Like, we just know that we've just got to eat whole foods. Like, that's just a no-brainer. And irrespective of whether you're in the plant-based camp or the carnivore side or somewhere in between, which offer us a myriad of different diet options, just go for whole foods. Like, it's just so much easier. We know that we've got to move our body. It doesn't, irrespective of whether it's yoga, F45, CrossFit, marathons, whatever, you've got to move. Like, you just got to move. And we know the importance of sleep and how devices can wreck sleep, and the importance of just getting on top of those 3 things. Just move, eat real food, sleep well. Everything else is going to fall into place. It's almost like that noise that came with the emergence of veganism, paleo, carnivore. Now it's animal-based, like it's the new big thing. It's just like this noise is trying to make everything so confusing, but it just doesn't have to be. It's like going into the supermarket and getting 3 things and nailing lunch. Like, there are 101,000 things in the supermarket that can confuse us and tantalize us with marketing messages, but we just know. I know that there's so much fiber and fat in an avocado, it's going to keep me full. I've got my protein from the fish. Banana's sweet and it tastes like dessert and I like it, and it's got fibre in it too. So it's just simplicity. And I still love listening to the noise, because you get some really interesting conversations and viewpoints in a lot of the noise that's coming out. And there's so much nuance now in that noise. But I just think that you can't beat the staples of simplicity. And I love just trying to simplify things. Like, if you're trying to lose weight, for instance, then just the simplicity of, irrespective of where you are on maybe dietary advice, ultimately it will come down to one thing, which is going to be calories at the end of the day. And yes, there are nuances in the type of calories, but if you are consuming an excess of calories through whatever dietary modality you're following, it's going to be hard to lose weight. So simplicity is just looking at everything in its raw form. Well, you want to lose weight, let's first just pull those calories in alignment. Let's work on our sleep. Let's look at the quality of food that we're eating. And from there, we'll probably realize that we can make some adjustments, and it will make that task super easy. So definitely reducing the noise and just focusing on the simple things. What did our grandparents do? Because they didn't go to the gym. Like, my granddad was never seen running along the street. And I always joke that back in the day, if people were seen running, oftentimes people thought that they were running from something. Because nobody ran. Like, why would you run?
They were just active during the day, naturally.
They just moved.
Yeah.
They just moved. And now we've got to, sit in our cars and drive to the gym and then stand on a treadmill and walk. It's just kind of crazy. And I just walk around the block. Much easier.
I love that. I love the focus on simplicity. And I think bringing it back again to people who have very busy lives, very busy days, everything coming back to simplicity, I think just takes a lot of the stress out of it. And ultimately you get such a huge reward, not just physically, but mentally as well, from a clarity perspective and a focus and a problem solving perspective too, when we're not clouded by that sugar fog that we can get if we have too much sugar. Totally.
It's profound how you feel when you don't require all of that continual food, that constant train of calories, and when you pull that away, it's like, what? I'm not even hungry. Why am I not hungry? And then you can start to focus, really, really focus, and you realize that, well, my brain is working differently now. I remember things. I can recall things. I don't feel hangry. I can just enjoy the day, and things start to work out in a very different way as to when we constantly have the highs and lows because we've had some kind of rainbow-coloured breakfast cereal followed by a coffee that resembles an ice cream dessert.
Yeah.
all in the name of marketing.
Absolutely. I think I'd love, just for people listening, Stu, you've obviously interviewed so many interesting guests over your time on your podcast, The Health Sessions. What would your number one practical tip be for optimizing the work and wellness listeners' well-being to ensure they get the most out of their performance at work?
It will have to be working on a sleep routine, working to improve your sleep, because sleep is the biggest pillar of health. And without it, nothing works. If we wake up in the morning and we haven't had quality sleep, then we make poor dietary choices because we are chasing carbohydrate. We're chasing that fix. Our minds just are clouded for the day. We don't feel like exercising. We just feel like sitting down. And I just think all of the downstream consequences from poor sleep will just lead you into a place that you really don't want to be. So I would suggest focusing on just implementing some basics into your sleep in terms of screen time. Just try and switch off the screen time a couple of hours before bed. Think about the light in your house. Like I wear blue light blockers, and I've been wearing these things for so long. I look like a fool, but they are they're so amazing. Back in the day, it was like 2012, I used to buy these builders goggles, and they were orange for for whatever reason. I think it was Dave Asprey. We interviewed Dave Asprey really, really early on in his journey, and he was talking about the importance of blocking blue light. And so we went to Bunnings and bought these ridiculous looking things, these wraparound goggles, but you put them on and they made you feel calm. And I just realised that a lot of this really harsh blue light, whether it's coming from the light bulbs, the LEDs, the TV, Apple, iPhones, iPads, all of the above, it's very, very harsh and just sends signals to the body that says, hey, it's not nighttime, it's daytime. We've got so much light coming in, and that really disrupts your sleep. And so just working on a strategy to wind down, switch off social, try and turn off that monkey mind, try and dim those lights, consume your evening meal, hopefully, if you can, 3 hours before you go to bed. Make a world of difference. And then just work on the bedroom. Make it super dark, as quiet as you can be, not too hot. Cool is way better for sleep. And just try and keep to a consistent sleep schedule. Go to bed at the same time. Try and get up at the same time. After a few weeks, that'll just be automatic, and you'll be feeling better, and then you'll make better choices during the day. But really, a lot of the health and wellness professionals that I interviewed, that like the number one thing for them was, you just got to nail sleep. Sleep is so big, and it can be so disruptive to all the different parts of our health, whether it be cognitive, weight, energy, all of the above. Like without decent quality sleep, you're really going to be going backwards. So that's what I've concentrated on, and I've raised 3 girls now. We had twins when I had a 2.5-year-old in the early days of 180 Nutrition. My sleep really went south during that time, so I've experienced what it's like to have bad sleep, and it wasn't pretty, and it just ruined everything. And so I thought, right, I'm going to interview sleep expert after sleep expert, read all the books, and just test it myself and see what works. And I just came about to really a lot of those guidelines that we just outlined there that just make a huge difference. And even if you can get 2 or 3% more sleep from a quality perspective, you can feel reborn in the morning, as opposed to feeling like you've just been on a long haul flight.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Sleep, I agree, sleep really is the foundation of health. You have given so many amazing tips today, Stu. I think my favorite is your savory breakfast that gives you the key to unlock yourself from calorie jail. That was one of my favorite comments. I love your tip around if you don't have lunch, just going to the supermarket and getting an avocado, a banana, and then some sort of protein, whether it's the tinned fish, the salmon, or even a chicken, to give you that lunch. I think that's a really, really practical tool. And then ways to just get a better sleep. And I think all of these ultimately result in better focus and brain functioning, which means you're much more switched on at work and feeling like you've got less decision fatigue. So thank you so much for sharing your expertise. You are a wealth of knowledge. I always love chatting to you, and I have no doubt the Work and Wellness listeners will have got so much out of it. So thank you so much for your time. Thanks for joining me on Work and Wellness. If today's episode resonated with you, remember, someone in your network might need to hear this too. Share it with a colleague or friend who could use these insights. I'd love to keep the conversation going, so find us on Instagram at Mind Your Grit, where we share daily tips and continue these discussions. And if you found value in today's episode, please take time to rate and review the show. It makes such a huge difference and helps other people discover conversations they might really need. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Each week, we're building a community of people who believe that success and well-being go hand in hand. You can find the notes, resources, and links from today's episode at mindyourgrit.com. This is Work and Wellness with Angela Davies. Your work matters, your wellness matters, and this is where it all comes together. See you next week.